Welcome to this week's video, Order of Operations, otherwise known as Pemdas. Some of you know this acronym as Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally. There's another way that I prefer to write it and call it, so I'm going to re-express it the way I prefer it. And I think you're going to want to write this down. I prefer Pemdas. Instead of parentheses, I like to refer to grouping symbols because it's more than just parentheses. Exponents is the E, and then I write multiplication and division together here because one doesn't always precede the other. It's just in order of left to right. We'll deal more with that in context as we solve problems. And ditto goes for addition and subtraction. So let's go ahead and get that into our notes. Go ahead and press pause now and blast it into your notes. Let's take a look at a couple of different problems now. In this first problem, we have 4 times 10 minus 6 in parentheses minus 9. Now, how are we going to approach this problem? Well, the 4 is on the outside of the parentheses, right? These parentheses right here are grouping symbols. So that's going to be 4 times the difference of 10 minus 6, which is 4 minus 9. Now that I've taken care of the G, I look for exponents. There aren't any. Now I'm going to look for multiplication and or division as it approaches from left to right. So as I move from left to right, I see right here that I have multiplication. So let's perform that point. 16 is our product, minus 9. I don't see any more multiplication and or division, so now I'm going to move on to the addition and subtraction. I see right here that we have subtraction, and 16 minus 9 is 7, and 7 is going to be our final answer. For this next problem, 2 squared, all divided by the difference of 7 and 5, there is a grouping symbol. This fraction bar means division, but at this moment it is serving as a grouping symbol. So we have 2 groups, the top group and the bottom group. So as we work through this problem, 2 squared is going to be 4. We've dealt with the groups, or we're dealing with the groups independently, and I deal with an exponent on the top. Nothing else further to deal with on the top. On the bottom, I look and I don't see any exponents, and I don't see any multiplication and or division. So now I'm going to move on to addition and or subtraction. I see subtraction. 7 minus 5 is 2. Now overall, the last thing I see is division. So 4 divided by 2 is simply 2. And that's my final answer. There are several keys to getting these correct on a regular basis and really getting all mathematical problems correct on a regular basis. Here they are, in my opinion. Willingness to write and perseverance. This first one is really a subset of the perseverance piece. I'm willing to continue to write out my steps, right? Some people say you're lazy for not showing your work. It's not laziness, it's the fact that I want to make sure that I get things right. I get frustrated when I'm wrong, so I'm going to be willing to write out a few steps until I get to the final answer. And persevere. If I don't succeed, I'm going to keep trying. You know, if at first I don't succeed, I'm going to keep pushing. I'm not going to quit. I'm in this to win it. Let's try a couple more. This next problem, I want to pay attention to what's going on. Very quickly, I notice there's a times a negative in front. That negative refers to the quotient, the overall quotient of this program on the right side here. So I just want to approach this with fidelity. And I want to think about this order of operations continuously. So I have it over here on the right side as a guide. So approaching it, willingness to write 6 times. The opposite of 16 times 2 is that multiplication business on the top here, divided by 4. Willingness to rewrite 1 step at a time. That's 6 times. The opposite of 32 over 4 is 8. And 6 times negative 8 is negative 48. Piece of cake. This next problem is just busy with sets of grouping symbols. So there's multiple sets of grouping symbols here. Really just 2 sets. I go to the inner set and I see that this negative 4 on the inside is inside of parentheses. That's just it keep these from being back-to-back negative symbols. So we're just going to simply rewrite this and say that this is 7 minus 5 plus 4, oops, minus, and I'm going to evaluate that exponent because that's the first thing I can do, 25, close parenthesis. So that's 7 minus 9 minus 25, which is 7 minus negative 16, which is the same as 7 plus 16, which is 23. Now, how many of those would I have really written down if I was working this on my own? I think that this is a good point to rewrite. This is a good point to rewrite. And then I would like to see this as this line and go for my final answer right there. I would recommend that to be at least a minimum of 3 lines. Let's try a couple more problems. Here are 3 more problems for you to try on your own. Press pause now. Try the first one. Okay, I got -1. How did you do? Were you willing to take a look and say, well, this is the grouping symbol in here, so when you go inside from left to right, I see addition, then subtraction. Again, from the beginning, if this was subtraction, then addition, I would still work and do the subtraction first, then the addition. One doesn't come before the other. It's whichever is furthest to the left. So this is going to be 6 plus 2, which brings us down to the 8, minus the 5. Then 8 minus 5 is 3, and 2 minus 3 is our -1. You try the next problem. Press pause now. Okay, how did you do? -2 to the third is -2 multiplied by itself 3 times. It's common for people to put 6 or -6, both incorrect. -2 multiplied by itself 3 times is -8 plus the 4. So I dealt with the exponent first, then addition second. -8 plus 4 is a -4. Press pause now. This last one is a little tricky, but I think you can do it. All right, how did it go? First thing is I see, the double sets of parentheses jump off the page. I've got this minus sign or that negative up in the front. I got my grouping symbol here, this fraction bar, that's division. So I look at the bottom group. As I move from left to right, this bottom group can be dealt with. And that 2 minus 10 drops me down to that -8. And now I look at this as either 24 divided by -8 or -24 divided by -8. Either way, you get a +3. And then the -6 is just being held together inside the parentheses. We just write that negative number inside of parentheses. That's -6 minus 7, which is -13. It's the sum of 2 negatives. And this is all held together by multiplication, so I drop the implied multiplication piece in there, which means I'm going to deal with the division first, then multiply. -24 divided by -8 is +3. +3 times -13 is -39. And that's it. Patience, perseverance, willingness to rewrite. Good luck.